So when we gather together as a small group, what is the goal? I think we can summarize the goal in really one simple word: engagement. We've got different people from different backgrounds. Their days might look tremendously different, and they're all walking into maybe your house for a conversation about God's Word, to be encouraged together. And the goal of the facilitator, of the leader, is to engage them in conversation. But how do we actually do this? This can, again, be something that's challenging, but there's a couple things that we're doing here. First and foremost, we're actually developing a culture of engagement. And to develop a culture of engagement, one, it takes time. Second, it takes patience. And third, it really takes prayer. We're praying for the people of God to be knit together by the Spirit of God. But there are a couple things that we can do to help facilitate engagement. I kind of think the illustration of basketball. I loved basketball growing up. I lived in Chicago, and so I remember watching Jordan win the 3 championships, repeat the three-peat. I mean, it was tremendous. Maybe one of the most critical components on a basketball court is the point guard. Right? The point guard is responsible for distributing the ball, to make sure everybody's hands are on the ball, that they're engaged in that game. And so as a facilitator, as you're thinking about engagement, you're kind of serving as a point guard. And so one of the most important things of any point guard that you may ever notice, and if you're on a basketball court, you may hear this, is don't be a what? A ball hog. And so the first point of engagement is, don't feel the pressure that you have to do all the talking. In fact, feel the freedom to pass the ball and to engage other people in the conversation. So how do we do this? Well, the first thing is ask open-ended questions. Try to stay away from the simple yes, no, the answer is black or blue. Ask open-ended questions. Now, fair warning, this requires preparation. It means that before everybody gets in, that you've taken some time to look at the actual questions. If your church gives you a study guide, or you're responsible for creating your own questions, think through questions that have multiple possible open answers. What that will do is develop and facilitate conversation, because eventually somebody's going to say and do something that sparks another thought or another idea, and then all of a sudden you've got engagement. The second thing that we want to do as the facilitator is to engage in active listening. So again, I guess I'll just throw myself underneath the bus a little bit here. My wife always tells me that sometimes I may ask a question and then I just zone out. You know that moment where you're driving and all of a sudden you realize you've taken probably 3 or 4 turns and you don't remember making any? That's a little scary. Well, when you're facilitating a conversation, fight the temptation to zone out. Instead, after you've asked that open-ended question, engage in active listening. Pay attention not only to the people who are answering your questions, but to the people who are silent. What are their facial expressions? How do they shift and how do they move in their seats? When is it that somebody says something and you can palpably feel the tension or the excitement inside of that room? Engage in active listening. This is going to help you to really be agile, so that when you hit on a topic of conversation that's really exciting, you can sit there and rest in that space. And again, a little bit of a pro tip for you, I would just say, don't feel enslaved to that study guide where you feel like you just have to answer everything and you just have to go through it really quick. Embrace the moments of conversation. Life change, transformation, relational equity is built in those moments where people are being honest and transparent with each other. Now, the final thing, and this may be the most challenging thing, is to embrace the silence. Now, that was about 3 seconds. And I started to feel panicked. I gotta fill in the silence. What if nobody's gonna talk? Here's just a reality. Somebody will break before you do. Don't be the first person to break. Embrace the silence. It's okay to allow people to think. Everybody processes in different ways. Don't allow your mind to wander to that place of, oh no, I gotta be the ball hog. I've got to give the answer. I have to fill in the dead space. Friends, just embrace the silence. and fight for that engagement with the rest of your group. Now, we're building a culture. It's a culture of conversation. It's a culture of engagement. And in the beginning, it may be difficult, but don't give up. Fight for this, because anything good is worth fighting for. And what will produce is really a family, a people who are gathered together that have shared experiences, that have shared stories. And in the midst of your shared experiences, in the midst of your shared stories, in the midst of your mess, God's gospel is able to shine brilliantly to point you to the satisfaction that can only be found in Jesus. And so stay engaged and facilitate it, and just don't be a ball hog.